L'honorable ministre a-t-il le consentement unanime de la Chambre afin de proposer la motion? D'accord. D'accord. La Chambre a entendu l'énoncé de la motion. Plaît-il à la Chambre d'adopter cette motion? Oui, adopté. Conformément à l'ordre adopté plus tôt aujourd'hui, la Chambre procédera maintenant aux déclarations de ministres. Le très honorable Premier ministre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise here in this moment, in this House, as our generation faces its greatest challenge yet. We all stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, of all those Canadians who saw our nation through difficult, tumultuous times in our history. Il y a 103 ans aujourd'hui, des jeunes soldats canadiens se trouvaient dans des tranchées en France, à des milliers de kilomètres de chez eux. Le lendemain, ils prendraient d'assaut la côte 145 et participeraient à la dernière bataille de la crête de Vimy. Aujourd'hui, à l'aube de ce sombre anniversaire, nous nous souvenons de leur courage et de leur sacrifice. Nous nous souvenons de ces soldats qui ont façonné le pays que nous connaissons aujourd'hui. 20 years later, many would be sent to the front again. On the evening of November 14th, 1940, my grandfather, the young MP for Vancouver North, rose in his seat to speak to the war effort, but first thanked all those senior members who allowed him to speak before them because his leave from the RCAF had expired that night and he was to ship out soon. Jimmy Sinclair would spend the next 3.5 years in Europe and North Africa, far from his young family, far from his work in this House of Commons, and far from his constituents in British Columbia, serving his country in the best way he knew how. He would return to the chamber in early 1944, a mere few months before D-Day, to exhort Canadians to continue with the sacrifices and efforts required to win. This is the year which will decide a rapid victory or a long and protracted war. A year when our fighting men must be given every conceivable aid and support and encouragement by every man, woman, and child in Canada, no matter the personal cost. These were trials that shaped our country, and more, our citizens. And now, once again, we are being tried. But, Mr. Speaker, this is not a war. That doesn't make this fight any less destructive, any less dangerous. But there is no front line marked with barbed wire, no soldiers to be deployed across the ocean, no enemy combatants to defeat. Instead, the front line is everywhere. In our homes, in our hospitals and care centers, in our grocery stores and pharmacies, at our truck stops and gas stations. And the people who work in these places are our modern-day heroes. Separated from their family, risking their own health, they head to work every day so that we can eat, so that we can heal, so that we can do our part. Because every one of us has a role to play in helping shield our country from the threat it now faces. In hard times, courage and strength are not defined by what we say or do loudly in public, but by the actions we take quietly, in private, like staying home. Even as we stand apart, we stand united in our resolve to do what we must until COVID-19 is defeated. Monsieur le Président, nous sommes ici aujourd'hui pour faire adopter la subvention salariale d'urgence. Il s'agit de la politique économique canadienne la plus importante depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale. Cette subvention va permettre aux Canadiens de garder leur emploi et un chèque de paye pendant cette crise. C'est ce sur quoi nous voterons cet après-midi. Cette subvention s'appuie sur les démarches déjà entreprises pour venir en aide aux Canadiens, comme l'offre de prêts garantis aux petites entreprises et la prestation canadienne d'urgence pour ceux qui ont perdu leur emploi. Encore une fois, dans cette Chambre, nous sommes appelés à soutenir ceux qui sont dans le besoin et je sais que nous ne les laisserons pas tomber. Mr. Speaker, as Canada confronts this crisis, we are all called to serve, to fight for and alongside each of our fellow citizens, to fight for someone's mother, for someone's grandfather, for someone's neighbor. Our job as Canadians is to uphold the dignity and sanctity of every single human life, whether they be rich or poor, or old, ailing, or healthy. That is our duty. Without reservation, without pause, we must fight for every inch of ground against this disease. We must be there for one another as we spare no effort to safeguard our collective future. Au cours des prochaines semaines et des prochains mois, nous ferons face à de nombreux obstacles. Nous traverserons d'autres moments incertains. La peur et l'inquiétude continueront de faire partie de notre quotidien pour la plupart d'entre nous. Et malheureusement, nous pleurerons ensemble la perte des nôtres. Même si nous prenons toutes les précautions nécessaires, la situation risque de s'empirer avant de s'améliorer. C'est la triste réalité à laquelle notre pays est confronté. Notre détermination à en finir avec ce virus, notre engagement à veiller les uns sur les autres seront mis à l'épreuve. Mais je sais que nous sommes à la hauteur du défi devant nous. Canadians are among the most fortunate people on earth. Despite the challenges we have yet to overcome, despite the wrongs we have yet to right, ours is a country where we look out for one another, where we take care of each other. The generosity of spirit and compassion. This was alive long before this virus reached our shores, and it will survive long after it's gone because it is who we are. Monsieur le Président, notre pays est en deuil. Trop de familles ont perdu un être en raison de cette pandémie. Cette maladie est d'autant plus cruelle puisqu'elle nous empêche de se rassembler pour pleurer la perte de ceux qui nous ont quittés et de célébrer leur vie entre amis et familles. Au nom de tous les Canadiens, j'offre mes plus sincères condoléances à ceux qui ont perdu un proche. However, this holiday weekend also marks the coming of rebirth and new life. Easter is a time where Christians honor the passion, sacrifice, and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth and his teachings of compassion, forgiveness, and love. Passover is a time when Jews recall the covenant made by God with the people of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, and the heroism of Moses, who led his people from bondage to freedom. Vaisakhi is a time when Sikhs and Hindus celebrate the new year and the spring harvest. And even for those who are not celebrating, spring is always a time for renewal. These moments remind us that love, courage, and fortitude are the antidote to despair, that there is no challenge we can't overcome together. So let us make a solemn promise to each other this weekend to do just that. Durant ce long week-end, prenons un engagement entre nous de faire ce qui s'impose aussi longtemps qu'il le faudra. Et dans cette Chambre, faisons notre part pour remplir cet engagement. Prenons nos responsabilités et venons en aide à ceux qui sont dans le besoin. Mr. Speaker, as I stand here today, I think of the young men who died taking Vimy Ridge. I think of the greatest generation who grew up during the Depression and fought through World War II. They showed us how to fight for what we believe in and how to sacrifice for what we hold dear. Today, across this country, the last members of this greatest generation live in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. They're in their small apartments and the homes they built so long ago with their own hands. They are the ones most threatened by this disease. They fought for us all those years ago, and today we fight for them. We will show ourselves to be worthy of this magnificent country they built, and for them and for their grandchildren, we will endure, we will persevere, and we will prevail. Merci.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is perhaps very fitting that we are meeting here on this day, Holy Saturday, the day between the sadness of Good Friday, the day Christ suffered and died for our sins, and Easter Sunday, the day he rose and conquered death. For we are clearly in the middle of great hardship and suffering, but we have every reason to look ahead with hope and towards the end of the health crisis we are currently facing. Our hope is founded on the ingenuity and resilience of humanity and strengthened by the examples of previous threats which we have all overcome. Mr. Speaker, the past month has tested Canadians. We've been told to stay at home, away from family and friends. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, religious gatherings have looked different this year. We've relied on Skype or FaceTime to stay connected instead of family dinners, church services, or weekend gatherings. Stores and restaurants have been told to close their doors. And as a result, almost 6 million Canadians have lost their jobs. And the businesses that are still open are worried about how they are going to hang on. Malgré tous nos efforts, plus de 22 000 Canadiens sont tombés malades et malheureusement, plus de 600 sont décédés. Nos pensées et nos prières sont avec tous ceux qui ont perdu une proche. Au cours des jours et des semaines à venir, nos actions seront plus importantes que jamais. Maintenant que le gouvernement a présenté ses projections, nous savons ce qui nous attend. Nous devons continuer à suivre les directives de santé publique et nous devons unir nos efforts en tant que pays. On behalf of the official opposition, I want to acknowledge all of the Canadians who are going above and beyond during these unprecedented times. To the nurses, the doctors, the truck drivers, the grocery store workers, cleaners, pharmacists, farmers, and other essential workers, we say thank you. To the parents juggling schoolwork and their own jobs, we say thank you. I've always had respect for the teachers that have influenced my life, Mr. Speaker, but after spending the last few weeks trying to keep my children up to date with their studies, I have a newfound respect and admiration for what they do each and every day of the school year. To the churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, gurdwaras, food banks, shelters, and other organizations helping Canadians during these difficult times, we also say thank you. And to the public servants working hard each and every day to make sure that Canadians get the help they urgently need, we say thank you. Les Canadiens ont des questions importantes sur la situation que nous vivons. Notre économie est arrêtée. Et alors que le gouvernement annonce des programmes, l'argent n'arrive toujours pas aux Canadiens et Canadiennes. Nous avons un déficit de 184 milliards de dollars. Des années de discipline vont être requises pour remettre l'économie canadienne sur pied. De nouveaux documents du gouvernement présentés au Comité de la santé montrent aussi une image inquiétante. New government documents released to the Health Committee also paint a concerning picture. As one reporter put it, quote, "The documents show a government persistently downplaying the threat of coronavirus until it was too late." Other countries like South Korea, Singapore, and Taiwan ramped up testing and secured medical equipment early on, which allowed them to flatten the curve quickly, preventing their economies from being completely shut down. We were told for weeks that the risk of COVID-19 to Canadians was low. We now ask why that risk assessment seemed to change overnight. Why did the government wait so long to impose travel restrictions? Why were travelers not originally screened? Why do we have a critical shortage of medical supplies? Why is it taking the government so long to sign contracts with companies that are offering to retool their facilities to provide much-needed medical equipment? Why are other countries further ahead of us when it comes to testing and tracing? These are some of the questions that Canadians have, and they deserve answers. And while we know that mistakes have been made in the past, Conservatives are focused on looking to the future, on how best to get Canada through this crisis, our citizens healthy, and get our economy back on track. The Prime Minister has said that we need to prepare for a second and perhaps a third wave. Canadians want to know how this government is preparing to get ahead of those waves. C'est pourquoi les conservateurs exigent des possibilités régulières de poser des questions au Premier ministre et aux ministres à la Chambre des communes sur tous les aspects de la réponse du gouvernement à la COVID-19. Nous aussi tenir des réunions hebdomadaires des comités parlementaires de l'équipe Canada. We are optimistic that the government will listen to the ideas that we are putting forward to the benefit of all Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That will be a truly Team Canada approach. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
L'honorable député de Belleuil-Chambly.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais commencer en adressant des salutations respectueuses, d'abord bien sûr aux collègues dans cette Chambre, mais aussi des salutations toutes teintées de compassion. D'abord et avant tout, et entre tous et toutes, pour les aînés. Je ne peux pas m'imaginer le quotidien d'une personne âgée dans un des quelconques modèles de résidence tels qu'elles existent au Québec et au Canada. Isolés de leurs proches, exposés à une maladie qui, chez eux, pourrait s'avérer mortelle, sans même qu'ils ou elles n'aient vu leurs enfants et leurs petits-enfants une dernière fois. Il n'y a pas de limite à la tristesse d'une pareille situation. J'ai une pensée aussi pour les autres aînés, ceux qui ne sont pas directement ou autant exposés, qui voient la valeur de leur régime de retraite baisser, qui se voient quand même isolés, souvent dans des régions qui elles-mêmes sont relativement isolées, qui ne reçoivent pas leurs familles, qui vivent dans d'autres régions. J'ai une pensée pour ces gens Et on y reviendra, ce n'est pas le sujet aujourd'hui. J'ai aussi transmis des recommandations, des suggestions au premier ministre pour leur venir en aide autant que faire se peut. J'ai une pensée pour les travailleurs et les travailleuses, leur écrin victime de sa popularité. On est très heureux qu'il y ait des proverbiales cracks qui aient été rendus étanches pour les pompiers volontaires, pour la partie droit d'auteur des artistes, pour plusieurs éléments de ce type-là, et dont les gens qui se donnaient des dividendes dans de toutes petites entreprises. Ce sont des améliorations qui, après des revendications, non pas faites par un parti politique ou par l'autre qui est plus beau puis plus fin, mais par le monde, le vrai monde, qui nous écrivait dans nos bureaux de circonscription, puis dans les réseaux sociaux, puis qui disait « Qu'est-ce que vous faites avec nous autres? » Des discussions correctes ont amené des solutions. Vous savez, on a aussi des discussions sur la notion de Parlement virtuel, mais le Parlement virtuel ne sera pas moins réel. On n'est pas obligé d'être physiquement assis sur des banquettes en velours vert pour avoir des échanges. On peut faire ça chacun chez soi, avec une uniformisation du fond puis des machins comme ça, mais quand même, on peut le faire. Je comprends que les votes doivent se prendre ici. Je comprends qu'il faudra régulariser quelque chose, parce que les règles sacro-saintes ne peuvent pas être changées comme ça. Mais nous demeurons en faveur, pour en avoir parlé pendant longtemps, et il y a longtemps, d'une forme de Parlement virtuel. Malheureusement, puis je le fais encore avec un esprit d'ouverture, puis il n'est pas trop tard. Nous sommes intervenus il y a assez longtemps sur l'enjeu de l'accueil des gens qui arrivent de l'étranger, de différentes façons, aux frontières du Canada et du Québec. Je suis obligé, Monsieur le Président, de souligner que j'ai une vive inquiétude face au fait, après tout ce qu'on a fait, après tout ce qu'on a dit, après la connaissance que nous avons du pourcentage des cas du coronavirus qui sont arrivés de l'étranger, comme ça pourrait se produire, et j'insiste, avec le plus grand respect, la plus grande affection et le plus grand sentiment de bienvenue à l'endroit de ces gens-là, je m'inquiète gravement que 159 travailleurs mexicains qui n'ont ni eu le test de la COVID-19 au Mexique, ni été placés en quarantaine au Mexique, aient pris l'avion, soient atterris à Dorval ce matin, n'ont pas subi de test de la COVID-19 sous l'autorité de Douane Canada et n'ont pas été mis en quarantaine dans une des milliers de chambres d'hôtel qui est autour de l'aéroport et ont été confiés à une organisation qui les amène dans les régions du Québec, dans ce cas-ci, du côté nord et du côté sud de Montréal. Connaissant les caractéristiques de ce virus, ayant des statistiques qui disent qu'entre le quart et la moitié des gens qui le portent n'ont pas de symptômes, connaissant le fait qu'un test pour quelqu'un qui n'a pas de symptômes pourrait s'avérer inutile, est-ce qu'on ne prend pas un risque qu'on pourrait assez aisément contenir? Nous avons communiqué avec le gouvernement privément à plusieurs reprises à cet égard-là. Je le refais encore en tout respect pour les institutions, pour les gens. J'en appelle à l'ouverture d'esprit. Je répète et je dis que si le gouvernement peut mettre les dizaines et les dizaines de milliards qu'on vient de voir, quelques dizaines de millions, c'est ce dont il s'agit, peuvent être investis pour donner encore une fois le sentiment de sécurité aux communautés rurales du Québec et du Canada, en assurant que l'arrivée des travailleurs étrangers soit assujettie à une mise en quarantaine, un test de la COVID-19. C'est la meilleure manière de rendre service aux pays d'origine, aux travailleurs, aux exploitants agricoles qui n'ont pas cette expertise, qui ne peuvent pas recevoir plusieurs travailleurs étrangers chez eux en disant « je vais te faire une place dans le sous-sol pour faire une quarantaine ». Ça ne peut pas convenir. C'est le devoir solennel de l'État. Puis c'est les douanes canadiennes qui ne peuvent pas relever du Québec ou des autres provinces. Je nous invite donc, outre les 159 qui sont déjà partis, qui pourront être testés de différentes façons, je nous invite à annoncer très vite des mesures de confinement à l'arrivée et de tests de la COVID-19 pour que ces gens-là soient aussi bien accueillis au Québec et au Canada qu'ils le méritent et qu'ils aient cette contribution au bénéfice de notre économie. Comme j'ai dit, Monsieur le Président, en terminant, nous pensons en termes de collaboration vigilante. Dans ce cas-ci, notre collaboration est de nouveau acquise. C'est une demande, ce n'est pas un reproche que je formule, parce que nous avons le devoir de rester vigilants les uns envers les autres, parce qu'on invente à chaque jour les mesures pour régler les problèmes tout nouveaux qui se manifestent à chaque jour. Merci.
Nous allons attendre une trentaine de secondes. Nous avons des changements techniques qui prennent place. The honourable member for Burnaby South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In the last month, our world has changed dramatically. On Thursday, we learned that 1 million Canadians have lost their jobs. Now, this is not just a statistic. These are families that are now struggling to put food on the table, to pay for rent, to make ends meet. The government has moved to respond to this crisis, but in many cases, it's been too slowly. In early March, we had two suggestions. One, that the government should send direct financial assistance to all Canadians. And two, that we need a 75% wage subsidy, at least at a minimum, to ensure that people can keep their jobs, and a subsidy that will support businesses in keeping workers on the payroll. Later today, we will be, and we've already supported the unanimous consent motion, but we'll be supporting the legislation to make this wage subsidy a reality. But I want to urge the government that while we're here in Ottawa, we should not leave here without knowing and without guaranteeing that all Canadians who need help get that help. La prestation canadienne d'urgence ne couvre tout simplement pas tous les Canadiens et Canadiennes qui ont besoin de cette aide. Trop nombreux sont ceux et celles qui risquent de tomber dans les cracks. Trop nombreux sont ceux et celles qui risquent de tomber dans les cracks. I think of some of the stories that I've heard over the past weeks about the people who desperately need help but are unable to access that help because they don't meet all the criteria. I think about people working multiple jobs to make ends meet who've lost most of their hours of work and don't know how they're going to pay for groceries. They should be applying for help. I think about the freelance and contract workers who have lost most of their income and are maxing out their credit cards to pay their bills. They should be applying for help. Students who depend upon summer jobs to pay the rent, some who work to support their families, now they have no jobs to apply for. They should be applying for help. Artists, self-employed, people who are just on the margins. In fact, there's so many examples, and that's the problem. For the last several days, New Democrats have been working with the government to fix the gaps, and that work is reflected in the motion that we've heard and in the work that will be done. I want to thank the Prime Minister and other members of government for the constructive way they've worked with us. But we're not done yet. The current system discourages people who need help from applying because they still have some income or they don't meet all the criteria. Yesterday, the Minister confirmed that everyone who applies for the CERB will get it. So I asked the Prime Minister today, announce that all the criteria will be dropped and simply tell people, if you need help, apply for it and you'll get it. Let's keep it simple. Let's make sure that everyone who needs help knows that they can apply for that help and that they will receive it. The only way we're going to get through this crisis is if we take care of each other. We are all connected. And we won't stop fighting until every Canadian gets the help they need, period. There have been heroes in this crisis in fighting COVID-19, and I want to also acknowledge those frontline workers who are keeping us fed, those who are keeping us healthy. It's saddening that they don't have the equipment they need to protect themselves and prevent the risk of infecting their families. I specifically want to mention healthcare workers who are often sleeping in their cars or sleeping in tents to prevent the spread of infection or the risk of infection to their families. We have to do better. We have to ensure that all workers have the protective equipment that they need to stay safe. During this crisis, I also believe it's important to make very clear that there is no room for companies profiting off the desperation of people. Credit card companies and others charging double-digit interest rates need to be stopped. And we need to use all our powers at the federal level to make sure that happens. Banks are continuing to charge interest, leaving people worse off with the mortgage deferral. And in fact, they are profiting off of this crisis. The finance minister, I know, has spoken with the banks, but clearly speaking nicely hasn't worked. Banks are regulated expressly by the federal government. The Liberal government has to be prepared to use the powers we have to enforce pausing interest, putting a brake on that. And in fact, what we also need to do is to put a pause on mortgages so that we can work with provinces to put a pause on rent. This should also apply for commercial rent, which would significantly help out small and medium-sized businesses. I know that in the coming weeks, we're going to start to talk about what a recovery would look like, how people will get back to work. And as we design this stimulus, I urge the Liberal government to not make the same mistakes of the past. Every public dollar that we spend must go to workers, not to CEOs. Executive bonuses and share buybacks, protecting shareholder profits, do not sustain or create jobs. Nous pouvons stimuler l'économie et faire les choses qui peuvent transformer notre nation et lutter contre la crise climatique. Construire des logements, investir dans le transport public, faciliter l'utilisation des énergies renouvelables par les Canadiens et Canadiennes, rendre nos maisons et nos bâtiments aussi efficaces que possible sur le plan énergétique, investir dans des services de garde d'enfants que toutes les familles peuvent se permettre et qui donnent à nos enfants l'éducation de haute qualité qu'ils se méritent. I also want to talk about Indigenous communities specifically. Over the last month, I've spoken with leaders across the country, Indigenous community leaders who've expressed very grave concerns around the lack of capacity for their communities to deal with a COVID-19 outbreak. These are communities as a result of historic and ongoing injustice that are without basic infrastructure, where washing one's hands with clean water is not often possible, where overcrowding and the lack of quality housing means physically distancing is also not a reality, where access to healthcare is severely limited to the point that the nearest ventilator for many communities is a flight away. I know the government has put some money on the table, but I've heard two specific concerns. One, that money is insufficient, and two, many Indigenous communities are finding it difficult to access that money. Historic neglect and racism has put Indigenous lives at greater risk of this virus. We have to do better, particularly the fact that in the coming weeks, many of these communities will face flooding, and this summer they'll face forest fires. So we need a clear plan for safe evacuation of these communities and a clear strategy to ensure that these communities have the resources they need to respond to COVID-19. Indigenous lives matter, and we need to make sure we're prepared. Mr. Speaker, I believe in the decisions. Mr. Speaker, I believe the decisions we make in the next weeks and months will be some of the most important of our lives. Some of the most important that any Canadian government has been faced with. Nous croyons en la solidarité. Nous croyons en l'entraide. We hear a lot of people talking about when will things return to normal. But I believe we need to do far better than normal. Normal is workers not having paid sick leave. Normal is families struggling on a minimum wage. Normal is people who are essential to our health and safety not getting paid enough to live. Normal is a public health care system that has been starved of funding. Normal is a society that is neither fair nor resilient. We can't ever go back to normal. Canadians are showing their compassion. They're showing their desire to care for one another. We should demand that of our government as well. We should demand that this Liberal government embrace those same values. Let's not return to the old normal. Let's build a new normal where we take better care of each other, where we have a strong social safety net that lifts us all up together. Let's build a Canada that is fair and resilient. Canadians are counting on us. They're counting us to learn from this crisis, to build a better Canada for all of us. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je veux commencer au début pour je veux reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel des peuples algonquins. We are here on traditional, unceded Algonquin territory, and I thank them for hospitality and generosity. Miigwech. I also want to start by saying a large thank you. Merci à tous mes collègues pour l'occasion pour moi de prendre la parole sur ce sujet tellement important, parce que c'est avec un accord unanime, consensus. Merci mille fois. It really means a lot to me that the Green Party is recognized in this place and allowed to speak as we gather in these entirely unprecedented times. I was moved by the Prime Minister's remarks in reminding us of Vimy. I hadn't planned to speak about Vimy, but April 9th this year, and I noticed my husband very depressed, he's sort of wandering about, and I said, what is I'm thinking of my grandfather, who was machine gunned on Vimy, April 9th, 1917. His grandfather survived, otherwise I wouldn't be married to my husband, I suppose. But his grandfather, John Owen Wilson, survived, got back to British Columbia, and ended up as Chief Justice of the British Columbia Supreme Court. But the sacrifices of Vimy are not forgotten. The courage and solidarity of previous generations is not forgotten. I've thought in recent times that being a boomer and 1954 baby, I'm one of the last of a generation that remembers a time of the kind of solidarity and sacrifice, not that I lived through the war or the Depression, but my parents did. And so the family stories become part of who you are. They're in your bones. The notion that government sets up, that government is on your side. And I think through years of neoliberalism, we've gotten this idea that government's kind of in our way, picking our pocket. I'm really relieved that in some ways, this solidarity that we will have coming out of this pandemic will allow us to see, yeah, I'm part of my government. My democracy works for me. I hope that can be a lasting lesson. We are here together in a way that I want to acknowledge with deep gratitude. Is Parliament working well even when we're at a distance? I want to thank Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, and so many different ministers for the openness to hear ideas and concerns. If I could share with Canadians what the last couple of weeks have felt like, working from home nonstop, 24/7. A lot of Canadians wouldn't imagine that every single day, 1:30 BC time, 4:30 in Ottawa, every day including Saturdays and Sundays, we have an opportunity to ask anything. Now, in my mind, this is how the ideas have been working. It's quite true that a lot of the things we wanted weren't in the first bill in C-13. It's quite true that Greens, like others, said it shouldn't be a 10% wage subsidy. It should be 75%. We made that case, and individual examples came forward. It feels to me as though through those daily question and answer sessions, and I know not every single day do all of us get our questions in. Some of us, the member for Carleton does well. I do pretty well. Push *1 and go for it. We do our best to get our questions out there. But in my head, this is how it's been working. We raise a question. We say something like, what happens right now? Bishop McMenemy has just contacted me, and the Anglican Church on Vancouver Island has separate churches, and they all have their own CRA number, but there's only one employer. So the 30% wage, 30% revenue deduction, 30% reduction in revenue compared to some other reference period doesn't work at all in this circumstance. Then today, I look at the most recent version of the bill. Entity is redefined. It now covers that specific weird example of the Anglican diocese and an issue raised.
It's 23 hours.
There may have been many other MPs who asked a question that stumped the Finance Canada senior officials that were on the telephone with us every single day. But when I see that in the bill, I think, oh, my question not only was a question, it flagged an issue. And this is what I hear from ministers. Keep sending us the specific concerns that you see. Keep telling us where the gaps are. Because the MPs on the ground right across Canada are the eyes and ears on the front line, able to say, nothing you've got in place right now, with all due respect, is working for small business. I'm terrified that a lot of very small businesses, seasonal businesses, restaurants and so on, are going to go under even with the wage subsidies. But then I pick up today's unanimous consent motion. Well, I saw it before coming here, and I'm very relieved to see that it calls for the government to implement short-term support measures for small and medium-sized enterprises to be partially refundable, primary objective, maintaining jobs, reducing the debt related to fixed costs. I'm just finishing Lent, a period of fasting and reflection. And it speaks to the unprecedented nature of the crisis that we're in, that as far as I've been able to determine through research from home and looking through every bit of constitutional and parliamentary history I can find, the Parliament of Canada has never before sat on Easter Saturday. Good Friday, particularly in previous generations, was held sacred. The idea of meeting on Easter weekend would have been impossible to imagine. But here we are. And why? In about, looking at the clock, I think, in about 10 hours, it will be dawn in Jerusalem. And the first morning light of that sunrise will strike the walls of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre that's built on the spot where we are told the original cave was, in which the body of Jesus Christ was wrapped and placed in the tomb, the rock rolled in front of it, and that approximately 10 hours from now at dawn will be that remembrance of our stories, of our tradition, our faith, the most significant day, the most profound and important day of a Christian calendar, the resurrection of Christ, that the stone was rolled back, and that those who loved him, Mary and others, came and thought the body had been stolen, and the angels came to them, and then Jesus, disguised as a gardener, came to them and said, no, he is risen. Now, in this time when we are surrounded by death, and we are worried about our mortality, and those of the people we love, we can think of the things that are most important. And after this is over, we'll recognize, yes, we can survive. We can break the bonds of death. We can have faith in each other. We can invest ourselves in love for each other and our communities. We can remember what really matters. And right now, as I watch my grandkids on Zoom family chats, what would I give for a hug? I would love to think about our lives as transformed by this in ways that are profound, as we recognize that for the first time in my life, governments all around the world have decided without a hesitation, life is more important than money. We have deliberately and voluntarily shut down our economies to save lives. We have deliberately and voluntarily created for ourselves as lawmakers and as policymakers the challenge of an economic recovery because we didn't hesitate to know that saving life is more important than money. And when this is all over, and please God, it's over with a minimum loss of life in Canada and all around the world, particularly worried for those countries that lack basic health care. We mustn't forget our obligations to the poorest of the poor, just as we don't forget Indigenous peoples in Canada, just as we don't forget those who are most marginalized, homeless. But when we get through this together, let's remember that in this pandemic, we discovered what really matters.
Conformément à l'ordre adopté plus tôt aujourd'hui, la Chambre se forme maintenant en comité plénier pour examiner des questions reliées à la pandémie de la COVID-19. Avant d'entamer le débat, j'aimerais rappeler aux honorables députés la manière dont les délibérations se déroulent pour les 2 prochaines heures. Pursuant to order made earlier today, during the proceeding of the committee, no member will be recognized for more than 5 minutes, which may be used for posing questions to a minister of the Crown or a parliamentary secretary acting on behalf of the minister, and members are permitted to split their time with 1 or more members by so indicating to the chair. The debate will end 2 hours or when no members rise to speak. Nous pouvons maintenant commencer le débat.